Hello everyone. This is the 20th part of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Chapter 71, Road to Recovery, Lesson, Closure. Your focus ability is completely gone, Quinn, and the reason your magic is lashing out is that it has been artificially raised. You weren't meant to gain that much magic in that short amount of time. Your own magic is rejecting itself and is trying to get out. Quinn, who had his eyes wide open, started to tap a foot against the floor. He didn't blink his eyes, all his attention was on Alan. He was hanging on his every word. The news wasn't getting good, but it was something he needed to hear. If you want to get your magic back, you just need to get it back under your control. The current you don't have even a bit of focus ability. You might be the only one at your age who can't keep his magic under wraps even when everything is all right. People don't have magic lashing out against their will. Their magic might not respond to them, but it doesn't act on its own. Alan was as straightforward as he could be and sledgehammered his way to tell Quinn his current situation. "Any solution?" asked Quinn. There was a lump in his throat that was threatening to break out. "It's simple," Alan smiled. The usual smile that he always had. "You need to build it up like you did since you started learning magic. The connection has broken down, and you need to build it back up. You could have started to get your magic back the second it went out of control. I didn't need to come back here to help you out." Alan walked towards Quinn while speaking. "The only thing I can actually do to help is to make things easier. With your magic rampaging against you, it will be difficult for you to keep it under control." Alan took out a vial from his robes and showed it to Quinn. "So the solution to all that is to numb down the magic. By giving you the magic dampening potion, we can level the field. By numbing your connection to your magic, we can make sure that you can work in a calm sea and not in a storm." Quinn closed his eyes to hide the pain he was feeling. The question came out. "I lost all my progress." Alan nodded and confirmed his fears. "Yes, you lost all your progress. But I can regain it back." The question made Alan's eyes sparkle and widen his smile. The old Quinn was coming back, the Quinn who surprised him time after time. He could feel it. "Yes, you can. You built a tower, and it broke down. You just need to build it again." Quinn opened his eyes, and there was a glint in his eyes. "I will build a damn pyramid this time. Something that can't be broken down. Hell to it all if I am going to let something like this happen again." "Excellent, that is the spirit, my child. You did it once, and you can do it again." Alan patted Quinn's shoulders and said, "Now, go meet your family. They had been worried sick since you came home. Go and assure them that everything is fine." Quinn looked up at Alan and earnestly said, "Thank you for all of this." Alan smiled but said nothing, prompting Quinn to walk outside the room to meet his family. Just after he closed the door, Quinn looked down at his left hand, and immediately an orb of white light manifested above it. A simple, small, somewhat dim orb of light. In the hallway, with no one else but Quinn. He stared at the dim orb of light, which flickered as if it were almost about to go out. The intensity wavered every second. It would brighten for a moment but dim the next. The light was weak, but it shone brightly in Quinn's eyes. Quinn emotionlessly stared at the vial that Alan had handed to him. It had been 3 days since Quinn had returned home, and his daily routine was to wake up, go out for a run, have breakfast, wait for Alan to arrive, and then drink the magic dampening potion to finally free himself from the binds of occlumency. He looked up at Alan, who watched him, before opening the cork on the vial and downing the potion in one gulp. Quinn closed his eyes and felt the potion take its effects. As Quinn felt the magic dim down, his occlumency also weakened till he was no longer able to keep it operational. It was a weird feeling, not having his mind operating with occlumency aid. He couldn't remember what it was like before he got the mind-aiding art. Right now, it just felt like there were drapes over his mind, stopping him from peeking inside. "So, what do you want to talk about?" Quinn asked as he opened his eyes. He looked at Alan, who sat on a chair in front of him. A table in between them separated the young and the old. "I am going to leave today," announced Alan. "I have nothing else to offer. Your grandfather has the recipe for the potion, and I am sure that he has potioneers at his disposal, so I am not really needed. Your magic is your problem, and no one but you can solve it." Quinn crossed his legs before asking, "You could always help me out with the emotional aspect of occlumency. I learned the other two aspects from you, how about making it a complete set of 3? Alan chuckled as he refused, "I think it would be better if you learn it yourself. Your spoon-feeding days have passed. Learn it on your own. You already know how to disconnect emotions on different levels, so you have already started on the path. Just keep going." "You didn't spoon-feed me anything," Quinn sounded miffed. He surprised Alan quite a bit, so Quinn did anything but be spoon-fed knowledge. "Whatever you say, kid," Alan chuckled before continuing on a serious note. "Before I go, I think this is the right time to address some issues." Quinn furrowed his brows, uncertain. "Issues? You said that there was nothing wrong with me other than that I am the worst magic user in the world. For now, that is." Alan gave one of those soft stares that Quinn was not used to when they came from Alan. "What?" Quinn questioned, eyeing his teacher. "Quinn, we need to talk about the obliviation incident." Alan's voice was soft. He tried to make sure that Quinn was not threatened and felt as comfortable as he could. Quinn froze on his bar stool and stilled as he stared at Alan with vigilant eyes. "That incident wasn't in the memories I gave you." Quinn glared at Alan, who showed no reaction at all to the glare. "True, but a lot of times, patients hide things from their healers. You especially like to hold your cards close to your chest." Alan pointed at his temple and then pointed at Quinn. "You were in a dark state of mind when I first checked. Even though there is nothing physically or magically wrong with you, your mental health is still not at the level I consider healthy." Quinn continued to glare at Alan for a solid minute before softening his glare. "All right, let's talk about it." The harshness in the tone was still evident, even if it wasn't as pronounced as before. "Let's get this clear, what you did was wrong." Alan came out strong without beating around the bush. This matter wasn't when Alan wanted to dance around the topic and bring Quinn to enlightenment. "Of course, I know what I did was wrong," Quinn growled. "You don't think I know that? I erased a person's life, leaving them without an identity. It was one of, if not Quinn's biggest, regret out of all the things Quinn did while under the influence of the curse. He was a prick, a fraud, and built his entire life by robbing people of their memories." Quinn clenched his hands and spat. "Despite all that, I still feel wrong about erasing his entire identity off of him." He massaged his temples but couldn't meet the eye of his mind arts teacher. Even if the fate of Lockhart was the same as canon, it didn't fit well with Quinn that he was the one to cause that fate. "The reason I am bringing this up is that I have experienced something similar," said Alan, shocking and causing Quinn to look up at his teacher. It was the first time Quinn had seen such a somber expression on Alan's face. There was a haunting reminiscence in the mind arts master. "You see, when I was young. I was 40 years old at that time. Making way into the field of the mind arts. I was well into my travels when I arrived in a country. I won't name names." Quinn tried to imagine what a young Alan D. Baddeley would look like. "It turned out that one of the ministry bigwigs there knew about me. He also held an interest in my work, so he offered me an opportunity. An opportunity that at that time interested me a bit too much." Alan looked Quinn straight in the eye and spoke in a grim voice. "He offered me dispensation to experiment on human subjects who were on death row." Quinn sucked in a deep breath at that. There was nothing wrong with human trials if they were conducted properly, but how the topic started made Quinn feel that this would not end well. It was a rare chance to ethically perform mind magic on humans. At that time, using the killing curse to execute death row subjects was considered a normal practice. So me experimenting on people who were sentenced to death wasn't a moral dilemma either. Alan leaned back into his chair and stated, "So, as you might have guessed, I readily accepted. I took the opportunity to experiment on death row inmates with no restrictions on the things I could do. I was given full rein on how to operate. I didn't even have to care about their health or well-beings. So, I got 6 people to work with. Their fates before their death lay in my hands." A faraway look appeared in Alan's eyes as he continued. "I was so arrogant and full of myself at that time. I thought I couldn't do anything wrong, so I did whatever I wanted with the patients. I followed the protocol well because I was a professional in how I did things. The experiments went well. The 6 inmates were left all twitchy and with some tics because of the constant experimentation. I might have gone a little overboard, but there wasn't any permanent damage to any of them. But you see, during the experiments, a single thought plagued my mind. Alan's gaze locked on Quinn as a self-mocking smile rose on his face. I thought, I have never actually seen what would happen if I went all out of someone's mind. Alan opened and closed his fist. Mind arts is a controlled art, it needs finesse and subtlety. So I never actually knew what the mind arts could do if someone turned the dial all the way up. It was a professional curiosity that I shouldn't have tried to sate. So after thinking about it, I choose to use the memory charm. I decided to use an unchecked memory charm on one of the 6 people. To see what would happen, what would come out on the other side. There was a long pause as Alan went silent, and Quinn watched without saying a word as the tension in the room built up. The result was that the inmate forgot everything. He forgot every single thing. Alan tilted his head to the side and elaborated. Your guy just lost his identity, but he can still start a new life if he wanted. But, my guy? My guy forgot everything. He forgot his identity and his life experiences, and he forgot how to be a human. I ended up making him forget how to function as a human. I erased a human out of existence, and what I left behind was nothing better than a newborn baby. Alan derisively laughed at himself. The jailers thought I drove him mad. But they didn't understand. I hadn't driven him insane. No, I had erased a person out of existence. In a way, I had killed that inmate before the authorities executed him. It hit me a week after I had done it, and it took me time to get over it. Quinn gulped as he heard Alan recount his story. He felt chills go down his spine as he found out the conclusion of the incident. It was laborious to erase procedural memories because they were so deep-seated in a person. Procedural memory was a part of the long-term memory responsible for knowing how to do things, also known as motor skills. As the name implies, procedural memory stores information on performing various procedures, such as walking, talking, and riding a bike. Alan had erased everything that was learned through living. He had reverted the inmate back to a newborn state, who had just entered the world. Quinn, I don't know what you feel about obliviating your professor. I don't know if you feel guilty about it, or if you don't consider it your fault as it was done under the influence of the curse, Alan addressed Quinn after letting the story sink into Quinn's mind. But whatever it is, don't ignore it. Think about the incident and get some closure, whatever, to put this behind. I didn't get closure for a long time, and I don't want you to go through the same. So, just make sure that you have no lingering regrets about it. Alan tapped the table in between them, and Quinn felt the taps on his shoulders. Believe me, it will do you good. Clear things when they are fresh. Don't put out things for later and work while the wound is still ripe. Quinn nodded and got up when he saw Alan get up. Come, let's go out for a walk. The mood is too heavy for my liking, said Alan. His usual smile was back on his face. You should have seen it coming when you brought it up, replied Quinn. Quinn didn't comment on the sudden change in Alan's mood. He was used to it, and he didn't understand how the mind of a person with Alan's level of occlumency worked. The student and teacher, young and old, walked outside the room towards the garden. So, tell me more about this AID thing of yours. What happened to laying low, not wanting to garner attention, and all that jazz you talked about before you started school? Oh, that. That plan went down the drain in a single year. But let's talk about you. What have you been doing for the past 3 years? Well, I met this beautiful lady whom I have been spending time with. Really? You dog. Thank you, Polly, I will be fine from here. Quinn looked at the house elf and thanked her. I will call you when I am done. Will little master be all right? Polly, worried that you get all hurt, asked the house elf with worry in her big eyes. She knew what was wrong with Quinn and that he had taken a potion that weakened his magic. Don't worry, Polly. I will be fine. I will go in there, and when I come out, I will call for you. Quinn pointed at the building in front of him and smiled in comfort. Okay, call Polly if in trouble, asserted the motherly house elf, before popping away back to the manor. Quinn looked at the building. It was a red-bricked, condemned departmental store called Purge and Douse Limited. The departmental store was the magical gateway to St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries. The place had a shabby, miserable air. The window displays consisted of a few chipped dummies with wigs askew, standing at random and modeling fashions at least 10 years out of date. Large signs on all the dusty doors read, "Closed for refurbishment." The hospital was placed here because no one could find a better place to house it. Everywhere in Diagon Alley was too small, so people came up with ideas to build it underground like the Ministry of Magic, but it was decided that the underground was too unhealthy. Eventually, a Muggle building was purchased so that patients could come and go and fit in with the crowds. Quinn walked towards a window displaying nothing but a particularly ugly female dummy whose false eyelashes were hanging off and modeled a green nylon pinafore dress. He leaned close to the glass, looking up at the very ugly dummy, and said, "I am here to see Gilderoy Lockhart." The dummy gave a tiny nod and beckoned its jointed finger. Quinn took that as the signal and stepped into the building. Just like the barrier at King's Cross Station to platform 9 3/4, he didn't crash into the building and arrived in a different place. He was in what seemed to be a crowded reception area where rows of men and women sat upon rickety wooden chairs, some looking perfectly normal and perusing out-of-date copies of Witch Weekly. Others sported gruesome disfigurements such as elephant trunks or extra hands sticking out of their chests. The room was scarcely less quiet than the street outside, for many of the patients were making very peculiar noises. People in lime green robes were walking up and down the rows, asking questions and making notes on clipboards. Quinn noticed the emblem embroidered on their chests, a wand and bone, crossed. Quinn ignored all the hustle and bustle of the area and just made his way into the hospital. He found the floor guide on a wall and found the place he was looking for. Spell damage. 4th floor. Unliftable jinxes, hexes, incorrectly applied charms, etc. He found the stairs and made his way to the 4th floor. It took some asking around, but he was able to find the right place. He stared at the double doors that marked the start of a corridor signposted. Spell damage. He entered the corridor and looked around to find the ward, Janus Thicke ward, Janus Thicke, Janus, found it. It was the ward for permanent spell damage. The door was locked. Quinn took a deep breath, and with a shaking hand, channeled all the bits and pieces of magic that he could muster and unlocked the locked door. Gilderoy Lockhart sat in his bed. He had a quill in his hand and parchment in front of him. The man was scribbling on it with his tongue sticking out. He knocked on the door, and Lockhart looked up. "Yes?" asked the man in hospital clothing. Quinn walked towards the bed and sat on the armchair beside it. "Good afternoon. My name is Quinn West." Lockhart smiled and introduced himself. "A wonderful afternoon to you as well. My name is Gilderoy L. Lockhart. Do you want an autograph?" Quinn smiled and nodded. "I would love to have an autograph." "All right, wait a minute. I am going to write up a good one. I am getting better at this." "Sure, I will wait." Quinn watched as the man drew on the parchment with his quill. He didn't feel much guilt about erasing Lockhart's memories. The man would have continued to steal credit from people if he got out of Hogwarts unharmed. Then the time would come when Lockhart wouldn't be satisfied with his current level of fame, and it was inevitable with his personality that he would end up doing things much worse than what he did before. So, in Quinn's mind, what happened was better for all because from what he remembered, Gilderoy was able to continue his work as an author, after a fashion, getting someone to help him write the book. Who am I? Quinn felt Lockhart got what he deserved. The only thing that irked Quinn was that he was the one to deliver that fate. "Here you go, one autograph," said Lockhart, handing Quinn the parchment. "From me to Quinn West." Quinn took the parchment and saw one decent-looking piece of calligraphy. He could see the flashes of Lockhart in there. His hand went to the satchel he was carrying and took out a box and set it on the bed-top table in front of Lockhart. "What is this?" asked Lockhart, excitement flashing in his eyes. "A gift, Mr. Lockhart," replied Quinn, as he got up from his chair. "Please open it. It is all yours." The man ripped open the box and took out a figurine. "Oh. Isn't this me? How handsome am I?" Lockhart was so engrossed in the stuff in the box that he didn't notice that Quinn had left him long ago. Chapter 72, Family Time and Conversations. The calm and serene lake was a beautiful sight to experience. The steady, undisturbed water of the lake's surface reflected the sky above and the lake's surrounding scenery. The scenic beauty was enhanced as the lake was surrounded by lush green. The current location was as described. Quinn and Leah were sitting at the lakeside with fishing rods set up in front of them. "Neither of us knows how to fish," Quinn said as his other siblings stared at the lake. One could only watch the reflection in the lake for so long before it got boring. "This is a bad idea. We just need to give it time. Fishing is all about patience," my little brother pointed out Leah. She then raised her wand to send a pinching hex on Quinn's upper arm. "Ow! Why would you do that?" glared Quinn at his sister as he rubbed the hurting spot. "I am spending my precious free time with you." Leah took out a bottle of beer from the cooler beside her and popped the cap off with magic. "Be grateful." Yeah. "I am Leah West, look at me, I am a big business lady," Quinn mocked his sister. He rubbed the red spot on his arm and whined. "Damn it, this still hurts. Couldn't you have been gentler? Like you are any better. I am Quinn West, look at me. I will be the big magic guy in the future." Leah imitated Quinn, her voice filled with sarcasm. "But I am stupid enough to lose all control over my magic, so maybe I won't be the big magic guy. I am going to be the big magic guy. This is just part of my glorious journey to the top," said Quinn, and gave his sister a sideways glance. Their grandfather had been caring and supportive throughout the ordeal. He just wanted Quinn to be safe and didn't care about anything else. Elliot had been supportive in the same way and always spent time with Quinn when he wasn't under the magic dampening potion. Ms. Rosie had scolded him some before taking care of him in her own way. Leah, on the other hand, showed a different reaction. Quinn's elder sister hadn't known about the entire ordeal until she returned from spending a month in Barcelona for work. The first thing Leah had done after she was told of the situation was give Quinn a tight slap. If you asked Quinn, it was a really tight slap. Quinn, who hadn't been hit in this manner, was shocked. He had been hit with magic during his duels with Elliot. Sure, he had been hurt by backlashes while he learned and experimented, but he hadn't been slapped on the face in this life. After slapping him, Leah made him sit in front of her and recount the story in detail. She had listened with a stoic face that closely resembled George's when he was in his serious mode. Leah's momentum swept Quinn, who was in shock after being slapped, and he retold everything that happened. She was the only one to actually scold him for being careless. And after screaming and yelling at Quinn, she hugged him tightly. Quinn could still clearly remember her tears on his shoulders as she hugged him. Before she went back to work, Leah freed herself up for a weekend, and here they were, West siblings camping overnight at a lakeside. "Do we have food in case we don't catch any fish?" asked Quinn. He wasn't optimistic about the prospects of catching fish for their meal. "Unlike you, I make sure to prepare for things," quipped Leah at Quinn's recent screw-up. Quinn winced and sighed, but the younger sibling couldn't say anything in reply because what she said was true, and the whole ordeal was rather recent. "Excellent, what are we eating tonight?" asked Quinn. He was getting hungry as they had skipped lunch. "If, and only if we don't catch any fish," Leah stressed her words because she really wanted to fish. "Then we are going to eat beef stroganoff." Quinn liked the sound of that. "Nice, that sounds perfect." He looked at his sister and said, "You know you can just cast a bubblehead charm around your face and go into the lake to catch some fish." Leah finished her beer before replying, "I want to catch fish with the rod. Otherwise, I wouldn't have rented them. And, I know what you are thinking, but no, I am not going to cast one on you so that you can go diving." "Oh, come on, why not? I know how to swim." "You are going to sit here and relax," said the overprotective hen. "Buzzkill," grumbled Quinn. "I am in my early 20s. I travel all the time. Between you, who is stuck in a castle for the most part of the year, and me, who do you think has more fun?" said Leah as she chewed on some jerky. "You travel for work," countered Quinn. "Ha!" Leah laughed, "I don't work all day long. My nights are free for me to do whatever I want. My nightlife is much more colorful than yours." "Don't you feel embarrassed when you compare yourself with a teenager?" asked Quinn because Leah's nightlife was indeed more colorful than Quinn's. He would usually spend his nighttime in the room of requirements repeatedly practicing spells, manning potion cauldrons, or hunching over different materials, trying to find what worked for them. While it may be fun for Quinn, it wasn't what you usually considered fun. Nope, no embarrassment here, came Leah's joyful reply. She looked at her brother before saying, but Quinn, you should really spend some time on things other than magic. Get a hobby or something. I have my piano and violin. Playing instruments is a hobby, said Quinn as he got up from his seat and stretched. Magic is my hobby and passion. Doing magic is all the fun I need, Quinn said as he looked at the blue sky. That is probably true, said Leah. She could still remember how her dear brother had become so attached to her first-year magic theory book. You did a terrific job on Magifax, Quinn, Leah praised Quinn. The invention of Magifax was the thing that really opened her eyes to Quinn's passion for magic. Oh, that. Thanks. I actually have some design improvements for it. Even though Magifax hasn't been launched, when it does, I'm sure it will gain traction at a professional level. I have a few designs for models for personal home use. Remind me to give you those when we get home. Magifax was set to launch in a few weeks, and the first motive for it was to set its feet in the professional environment. If Magifax was a hit in the professional market, then the personal home use market would open up. By using the reputation of the professional model launch, they could launch models suited for home use. Leah remembered something and shared it with Quinn because she knew he would love to hear about it. Quinn, do you remember the pitch meeting you did for Magifax? Yeah, what about it? Asked Quinn as he looked for jerky in a bag. Where is that jerky? I just saw it. Well, you said that it would probably take a year for someone to figure out how to make Magifax, but no one is anywhere near to figuring it out. That caught Quinn's attention. He got up from squatting near a bag and turned to face Leah. How do you know no one has gotten close to figuring out the design? No, wait, did anyone get their hands on a Magifax unit? There are still a few days until the release, right? Did you disconnect it from the network? No, nothing like that, laughed Leah. I actually set up 2 separate groups of researchers in order to make them figure out how Magifax works. I gave them a year's worth of time to work out how Magifax was designed because you gave us that estimated time. But neither group is nowhere near figuring out how it works. Leah's motive for setting up research groups was to get a proven estimate of the time taken to figure out the design of Magifax. Even though Quinn had said 1 year, she couldn't just take his word for it, so she set up 2 separate groups to research the design of Magifax. Her doubts turned out to be correct, as Quinn was wrong in his estimate, but she wasn't expecting the results she saw. She was expecting them to figure it out quicker, but almost a year had passed, and both teams were not even close to figuring out how it worked. Really? I really thought it would take at most a year. Quinn thought his estimate was a pretty accurate one as he hadn't actually invented something new to make the Magifax. All the magic used was already discovered, he just found new practical ways to use it. Are you sure you hired the right people? Did they have adequate qualifications? Quinn asked to confirm. Leah widely smiled. Yes, all of them are learned, magic researchers. They might not be good ones, thought Quinn but didn't say it aloud. Come on, let's make that beef stroganoff, already. We are not going to catch any fish, said Quinn. He was really getting hungry and the jerky had gone missing. All right, get all the stuff ready. We will start then. Leah didn't want to get up, so she instructed her little brother without making a move. Roger saluted Quinn and ran off to prepare the food. After Quinn was done setting things up, he smiled and finally hoped that he could get something to eat. Just as he was about to call out to Leah that the meal was ready to be prepared, he heard. Quinn! Quinn! I think I caught something huge. Come help me out. Quinn's jaw dropped before he gritted his teeth as he ran towards Leah. Damn it! I am hungry. This better be worth it. It was after dinner, and Quinn was sitting with George in the parlor. The grandson and grandfather pair were playing chess as an after-dinner activity. Quinn was expressionless, as the magic dampening potion's effects were already over, and the limit was a single dose a day. Currently, he was clamping on his occlumency to detach his emotions from himself. All his emotions were like a buzz in the back of his head, he could still feel them, but they were at a distance. How are you feeling? Any problems? Asked George as he made his move on the chessboard. Quinn stared at the chessboard and the pieces in the middle of the squares. I haven't felt any problems with my body yet, no weakness, loss of appetite, or anything else. Everything seems fine right now, Quinn answered as he moved his bishop for spots diagonally. What about your magic? Any improvements on that front? How is it coming along? Asked George as he took one of Quinn's pawns. Quinn stayed silent. He had no expression on his face, so George had no idea what his grandson was thinking about. Quinn spoke after they had exchanged a few moves between them. It hasn't been going well, at least not at a level I want it to go. Quinn's voice was quieter than before. It was the only difference George could discern in the voice of his grandson. My connection to the magic is weak. When I take the potion, it gets difficult to draw out the magic under that condition. On the other hand, my magic is just too turbulent for me to even get started when I am not under the effects of the potion. Quinn massaged his temple as he spoke after a pause. I am struggling between two extremities. Too less or too much? But are you making progress? George didn't mind if Quinn wasn't making substantial progress with his magic as long as he made some progress. The magic dampening potion was harmful to the body. As such, George wanted Quinn off the potion as soon as possible. Some progress, sure, answered Quinn as he moved his queen to a more offensive position. Things are trudging along. I see. George wanted to say something but trailed off at the end, opting to not say whatever was on his mind. But Quinn noticed his grandfather wanted to say something. What is it? George leaned back in his chair and took a drink from his whiskey glass. He made up his mind before speaking. Do you think you'll be able to go back to school at the end of your break? Quinn's hand, which was just above his rook, stilled. He stayed in that position for a second before pulling his hand back and setting it on the armrest. At my current progress, I think I will be barely able to get myself to the level required for my fourth-year classes at Hogwarts. I will definitely struggle, but I'll manage. But I don't know when my magic will calm down. The amount of magic inside my core was raised unnaturally. I don't know how long it will be before it settles down. Quinn's hand clenched as his occlumency slipped a bit and some of the magic leaked outside, rocking the chessboard. Quinn had to take deep breaths to get his emotions back in his control. I don't know how much longer I have to stay like this, Quinn pointed at his face. His expressionless face, the distant state of emotion he had to keep for a part of his day, every day. It wasn't something Quinn enjoyed but had to do it for his own safety. If you want to rest for a year, you can take an off year and join back next year, George suggested even though he already knew the answer. Quinn raised his head to look at George and gave a tight shake of his head. I am not skipping a year. I will be going back after the break. George nodded before speaking about something he didn't completely understand, but maybe Quinn did. Quinn, I am a businessman. I don't use lots of kinds of magic daily, just some magic that makes my daily life easier. Quinn felt confused at George's words. He couldn't connect the conversation with them. I've read a lot about the magic that there is being in products. Especially, on what is being used by our competitors in their products. I have to keep myself updated on different fields because it helps me be a better leader, said George. Take the Magifax for an example. I read how Magifax works. I know that the protean charm is used in it, and the other magic used to create it, but I just understand things on a surface level. I don't understand the finer details that you explained, the details that even Leah's teams of researchers failed to deduce. Quinn was getting more confused by the minute. He didn't understand where this was going. George looked at Quinn and pointed out, I don't know how wandless magic works. I tried to read about it when you told me about it, but I couldn't comprehend much of it. I don't know the mechanics behind using magic with an external focus. Just that it is difficult to learn. You have been using magic without focusing your entire life. You use magic in a different way than I do, but now this situation has come along. You have lost all your progress, and now you are struggling to get your magic back. George paused just a second before asking, do you think you will try using your wand if you aren't able to get back your magic to the level you were before? Quinn would have frowned if he didn't have his occlumency up. Are you telling me to start using a wand? George shook his head and explained, not at all. I am fine with your decisions as long as you are healthy. I don't care if you take time off to build your magic to its previous level. But, what if your magic takes time to get back to its previous level and clearly this is bothering you? Do you think you will switch to using a wand? Because from what I understand, a wand helps you focus your magic, and that is exactly what you need right now. George really wanted Quinn to stop taking the magic dampening potion, so even though he knew Quinn wouldn't like his suggestion, he still had to try. Quinn didn't know what to say or think at this point. He hadn't thought of using a wand to get his magic under control. A wand was never part of his magic, so it didn't enter his mind to use a focus to get his magic. And if I used a wand right now, wouldn't all my hard work would have gone to waste? Channeling magic without a focus was something Quinn prided himself in. He felt different from others around him. It made him feel unique. Quinn would be lying if he said he hadn't considered using a wand. During the time he had been under the influence of the sin curse, Quinn had felt envious of the entire school population because by using wands, their magic came easier to them. The only reason he hadn't used his wand at that time was that pride overpowered envy. I don't know, answered Quinn. He didn't know the future of his magic. He looked at George and asked to be excused. George nodded, and Quinn got up and left by wishing George a good night. As Quinn walked back to the training hall where he was living since he came back from Hogwarts, he only had one thought. Things need to change. This marks the end of part 20 of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.